my experience as well. One thing I want to end with, and maybe this is the last question, you talked about direct, brutal feedback as being sometimes the most effective way to communicate in a company, which sounds very tech, Silicon Valley, kind of hard-hitting, no BS type strategy. And then you pair it with, but it requires a company culture that is kind by default, which is it seems like, again, these two things don't fit together easily. Maybe you could send us off with how, as a business owner and operator, can I build kindness into the DNA of my company? And how can I help people become more kind by cultural default?
Yeah, I think, I will do my best here, but I think this really is one of the key questions for people who want to have a really good feedback culture, but then this thing happens where people feel like, well, if I'm giving feedback, I'm not being nice. And then they stop giving feedback, or they start giving feedback and they do it a little bit too brutally, right? Like, how do you get that continuum right? I have a quote in the book from Don Hall. At one time, I was on the board of Hallmark, which is a private company, but it's actually quite a big company. It's a very interesting company that owns Crayola and a media set of channels and also obviously Hallmark cards. But Don says, in a business environment, you need to be brutally honest. And to be brutally honest, you can't have a culture that's brutal. And I think that's the line we're talking about here. And here's what I would offer, which is so much of really productive discussion, feedback, open, honest conversations, in my mind, are about curiosity and framing. So instead of like, I thought that presentation was terrible, like, how do you frame asking for feedback? What could I have done differently? What could I have done to make that meeting more successful? So setting a culture of asking for dialogue about improvement and setting that example yourself. And then also starting any kind of inquiry with a curiosity about how did you think that went? Right? How do you think we did? What that thing, by the way, could be, how did you think that customer conference we just threw went? How did you think that sales call went? And letting self-reflection happen. There's been a lot of study of students, and the most productive learning mode for students, especially younger kids, is their own self-assessment first. And I just cannot hammer on that enough. Where is kindness in that? Kindness is in asking and saying, I care about you and what you think about how you're doing. Like, tell me how you would assess this thing that happened. Let them talk. And then the most kind thing we all can do for one another, which is why I feel like it's a luxury to be on this podcast with you, is listen to one another. Ask the question, listen to the answer, build off the answer, offer your own ideas. Create dialogue that is about support of being better, as opposed to definitive, declarative statements that things are bad, right? That's just like, honestly, or that people feel, you don't want people to feel bad or judged. I say in the book, be an explorer, not a lecturer, as someone who's coaching an individual or coaching a team. Understand what other people think about what's happening. Get to the root cause together, work on the solution together, be introspective. And the entire time, it is not about judging, it is about learning and asking people what they know and building on that. And I think that is kindness, because that is respect. And if you don't have that conversation, it's actually very unkind that you're thinking these things and not saying them. How do you frame them and say them in a way that it is comfortable for everyone to participate? That is the thing you must solve.